Good afternoon. We find ourselves picking up where we left off last week. Also, congratulations, Zareen, on being first, and thank you, Jigstraw, for the head pats. There is no news today. I've decreed it so. Thank you for the hydration. Okay, I've somehow turned closed captioning onto my stream, and it is very wrong. I'm not saying any of those words, what the heck? Anyway, Alright, I'm gonna steal computers from Blue Tide. Ooh, forklift. Alright, it's been a minute. Please bear with me. Okay, I vaguely remember what I was doing last time. I also got a new character for breaking the light at the top of the lighthouse. There's some propane there. So my goal is to steal every PC. They're all wired up to alarm boxes, so I can't just grab them piecemeal. I presume you could break the lighthouse light with a gun? Never mind. Okay, so we got a PC here. It's relatively elevated. Climbing stairs is slow, so I probably want to go through a window. Either before or after, or both grabbing it. My boat's right in the middle, so... there's no super obvious way to approach this. A lot of this I think I did cover last week, but I'm kind of refreshing myself, so... Ooh, chess. You win this round, chess. Chess is officially stronger than trees. Let me think. Ideally, there would be some way to, like, quickly get from over there to over here, but that's way too long. Overall, this bit over here on the left seems more elevated, so it makes more sense to me to start up here, then go down here. It'd be nice if I could just relocate my my escape boat. Got my keys right here. I remember hitting a chemical vat last time and it blew up and either killed me or nearly killed me. Interesting. Broken door. I wonder if the chessboard was set up correctly with a white square in the bottom right. I mean, we can find out. I might be an imposter, I just remembered where something was after it left my line of sight. Yep, it's set up correctly. And now it isn't. it wasn't and now it is. Did you just trick me into doing a good deed? Alright, I remember there was like a thing just over here. And there was like a bit underneath that I wanted to go to. If memory serves, I wanted to put the bomb about here. I really must be an imposter. That's like 2 wins in a row for my memory. What the heck? Okay, so left up there. So I can grab that, get out here. Alternatively, rather than going into the water, I could maybe try to get back up. If I got back up, I'd want to go roughly this way. Not being in the water feels a lot faster than being in the water. Yeah, last time I did use crates to, like, jump through the water faster. But if I just didn't have to go into the water at all, that'd be better. There's the thing up there. So if I could be here... There are lots of windows here. This one leads to the top of this greenhouse, so if I could get to the top of the greenhouse, that would also work. Though there's not really much reason to be over here. Unless I could get from, like, over there to over here really fast. So that building over there, there is a pipe connecting them. Let's look into that. So this one, the PC is there. And the pipe is... relevant pipe is this one. Which I could totally get to with some bombs and some planks, I think. It's a teensy bit rickety, but that's okay. Gotta make some headroom. I'm short, but I'm not that short. A second plank might make this a little bit more consistent. Alright. That gets me like this. And I might even be able to use the same pipe to get over here really quick as well. Like through the ceiling. And that's why we save. Oh, I can totally get in here like that. I can maybe even put like a car here to make it go even faster. Drop down there, get the, I think, Then if I could have a then if I could have like a boat waiting for me to like take me around to the escape thing. Okay, I might have the back half of my heist planned. This looks fast. This is fast. Okay. I was thinking, oh, maybe the water wouldn't be fast. It is fast if you're not in the water. Alright, alright. It's all coming together. So the goal is basically get in here, run over there, grab that, run over there, grab that, speedboat to the escape boat. Just gotta make sure all the intermediate bits are set up. This building is a smidge more resilient. Luckily, I brought plenty of shotgun ammo. Okay, so that gets me in here. So the PC is here. I'll get the monitor out of the way. Bright yellow arrow, because I am a gamer in 2026 and I apparently need those. Yeah, like that to indicate that it's not entirely lined up with the plank. You never know. Okay, so now I want to get up there as fast as possible. I think I saw some construction equipment. I might be able to use that the same way that I did in the art gallery. Kind of like a bridge to run up most of the way. Is it a bridge if it goes up, or is it something else? I guess I typically think of bridges as being flat, but like... I suppose technically there's nothing stopping them from being, like, not. Alright, I'm gonna want to get there quickly. Probably gonna be jumping down from over there, so... assuming a line like this... There shall be no unintentional fire alarms, if I can help it. Like that, even though I don't technically need it, because I can jump. Right, then the PC is there. Alright, back half of the heist is planned. These two are right by one another, so it kind of makes the most sense to me to go from, like, this one to this one, assuming that this one's last. Nice reinforced window. So I can just kind of go straight across like this, that's fine. Ooh, valuable. Also valuable. My target's right there. So if from there I can get up to the ceiling, that'd be great. These bombs are so useful. Held on by a thread. Alright, so from down here... Alright. So I can get from here to here. Now I just need to get from one of these to the other and then up. That one looks like it's farther down, so... it makes the most sense for me to start down here, then go over here. Or at least to start my planning looking like that. And I want to end up in this room. One of the devices is there. Oh, thank you for the hydration. I see the thing here. So I can hypothetically grab this and get up there. Do I have anything that'll make that easier? I do have a forklift. I see something moving. Can't quite make it out. Might have been a fish. Alright, Right, I got an idea. That wooden crate just shattered like a stone floor. Okay, so the plan... It's a little bit rough, I admit. I'll just use the fork. I don't need the crates. So... Puts me up here. This is totally how planks work. This kind of works. Why's my vision hazy? Oh, it's probably on fire. So I rush through, grab that. I'll just put this back. Luckily that's still intact. It's not quite as straight as I would like. I'll just replace it. There we go. Gonna go that way. Go that way. Alright, now I just need to get from over there to over here, which is probably going to involve a vehicle. Usually does. Oh, this is actually really conveniently close, though. Getting a better look at it. I might end up having to restart this one. Not that big of a deal, though. We are iterating, after all. That's in the basement. That must be where the alarm box is anchored. thought I heard something concerning. Okay, so I can grab that, and then take off this way. I go like that to get there, hypothetically. I can clear that with a jump, so I don't need to do anything about it. This feels like it's probably not entirely correct. But it also feels like it might accomplish something, so I may as well just give it a test run and see what happens. My paint was not yellow enough. Definitely not yellow enough. Still, promising. So I go this way, go over here. Around that, come back up this way. Grab this. Actually, 2016 game, or 2026 gamer moment. Bright yellow plank. Climb up this thing, grab... nothing here to grab, we just keep going. Grab this. And from there, I want to go... that way. And this is why we quick save. So I pop out like this, and I can just keep running. And the whole route should just be runnable. Alright. It all starts right here. Stuck. Not sure how this got destabilized. But fixable. Okay, we're going, we're going, we're going. We're going very fast. Oh, and I fell. Still, that was promising, actually. Potentially. We'll find out. Okay. First 4 grad in 20 seconds. I can get behind that. Oh. Just messed up on the exact same jump. If need be, I can put a plank there too. Because I really want to cut that corner. like how running with a sledgehammer in hand doesn't slow me down at all. Oh, go faster. This is so doable. I just need to shave like a couple of seconds, which I think mostly just means like not getting caught on things. Thank you for the headpats, I appreciate them. It encourages me to do more crime. Not that I would ever do crime, of course. Foxes are the most innocent and trustworthy animals of all, after all. We're going fast, we're going fast. We're neoming and yang. Go fast, go fast, go fast. Ride that rail like a Sony Hawk, let's go. Faster, faster, faster. So fast, let's go. Okay, just gotta go a little bit faster. Just like a 1/10 of a second faster. I wonder if there's anything that's like really slowing me down on this route. Maybe that hole in the wall there? And I think as long as I take it at the right angle, it's good. I clipped that wall and lost some speed, that sucks. Took that corner really fast, that's good. Took that really fast. I'm about at the same time as I was on my last really good attempt. Getting there slows me down just a tiny little bit. If I could like cross this floor a little bit faster. If I could cross that floor a little bit faster and like grab that laptop a little bit faster, that might make up the difference. The windows are all barred, it's like they're trying to keep people from breaking in or something. Right, so I could maybe widen that hole. If I could find some way to, like, get across this floor faster, that'd be good. Debris out of there. Oh. Well, this is not where I wanted to end up if I'm being entirely truthful. Which I always am. I never lie. Even when it would be advantageous to do so. Unless it would be funny. I will admit that sometimes it feels like my moral compass is a roulette wheel. Alright, that should get me down there and up faster. Now, if I could find like a zippy little vehicle to get me across the floor just a tiny bit faster, that'd be great too. A roulette wheel where every cheese is fox. Do you mean wedge? Okay, cool. I was like, what kind of roulette are you playing? I did see that truck over there. That might be good enough. Starts up reasonably quickly. Can I get it over there, though? I don't really see a way over there that a vehicle can take, unless I can take these stairs in a vehicle. Turns out you can. Or perhaps not. My back wheels appear to be off the ground. Shoot. I don't think this thing's very fast to drive. It's not. I might just have to book it on foot and hope that I'm fast enough. Okay, I start over there. Alright, round whichever round this is. Okay, we're going plenty fast. Actually a little bit behind par, I think, which is not a great sign. And then I got stuck. Okay, go fast, go fast. Very fast. Incredible high speed. I clipped a corner and lost speed again. I'd say my speed at this point is about average. Take that corner, go fast, go fast. Forgot to widen that hole. Oh. Gotta go fast. Faster than I've been going. It'd be really cool if I could, like, set up a bomb to, like, chuck one of the computers at me. Like, across the entire level or something like that. Just, like, snatch it out of the air at the last second. Got, like, an entire 15-second segment off the thing. Go fast. Yeah, exactly. Just, like, pop something through the air across the map. Be like, yeah, this was routed by Contessa. Unironically, in the past, sometimes when I've, like, struggled at games, what I'll do is I'll, like... Or, like, if I struggle at, like, a given boss or whatever, I'll, like, look up task speedruns to see how they do it. And then if it's, like, human possible, I'll, like, study that. It's like, if I'm having trouble with a boss, I probably want them dead as quick as possible. And speedrunners usually know how to do that. That was a really slow grab with that computer. And then I jerked my mouse to the right for some reason. Did that for the boss of Zelda 2. Yeah, fair enough, honestly. You should do the corner strat. Hunga bunga. Fair enough. I've never actually played Zelda 2 through to completion before. I actually had Zelda 2 with, like, the golden cartridge and everything growing up. It wasn't as fun as Link to the Past, so I just always played Link to the Past instead. Link to the Past being Zelda 3. They really did just kind of, like, nail it down with Zelda 3. They were like, yeah, no, we got everything right. We're just gonna keep doing that. And then they kept doing that until, like, 2017. And they weren't wrong to do so, and I kind of wish that they kept doing it past 2017. Like, nothing against the Wild Era games, like, they're very, very fun in their own right. But I'm very much a fan of, like, OG Formula Zelda. It's like, I want my hookshot back. They couldn't give us the hookshot in the Wild Era because it would break everything. What? How do you even get up here? Was 2011 Skyward Sword? That would explain it. I am very much one of Skyward Sword's detractors. I am willing to give it another shot. I'll probably play it through on stream at some point, but as a person who very much enjoys her Zelda, I did not enjoy Skyward Sword. Oh, shoot. Yeah, I'm hoping that if Slash want to get around to that game again, I'm hoping that like the motion controls will actually work, because the first time around they did not. I think legit, I got to like a mini boss or like a door or whatever, where to get through it, you absolutely 100% had to accurately slice 3 times in a row. And like, if you did one of the slices wrong, it would like reset your progress. And I legit spent like half an hour approaching that thing as meticulously and as carefully as possible. And invariably, every single time, every single attempt, Link would do like a diagonal slash instead of a horizontal slash or something along those lines. And I was just like, am I having fun? No. I have Twilight Princess on the same Wii. I'm just gonna play that instead. I've never actually played Resident Evil, so I can't really comment on that one. With the exception of like a little bit of Resident Evil 2, I want to say. The remake. With Mr. X. Would be interesting if there's an input tracker for Wii. I could probably finagle that. You can certainly see the cursor. I am, after all, a hacker. Like, actually. The ethical kind. The real question is, would it be that much... would it be worth the effort? I lost a lot of time there. I don't think I'm making this, but I'm certainly gonna try. Oh, I had tons of times, actually. I did it! And then I phased through the yacht. Alrighty. Yay, thank you for the head pats. My crime has been validated. Not that I would ever do such a thing. Ignore the video evidence. Just pretend I'm covering it. I've never done a crime in my life. I've definitely never hacked anything. I wonder if there's like a correct way to do this, and if so, how far did I deviate? Oh, she's fast. I like how fast that line is. And like how smooth the turn was. Talented. You reached a new rank. What have we here? Cable. What does cable do? Is it like a better tether than plank? I presume that it's a better tether than plank. I don't think I can zipline on it. Maybe that's an upgrade? Drag heavy objects with vehicles, suspend objects, or build various contraptions. I'll grab some extras. You can do it. Good for them. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Please use this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom. Ignore that I just shot the handle off of it. I'll see you in 5 minutes, roughly. I return. Perish beverage. Not only did Lee steal some of our most beloved paintings, but the insurance company is causing me headaches too. I'm a premium customer, but I still haven't seen any money for those paintings. I'll deal with Lee later, but right now I need to take that insurance payout into my own hands. I don't have a personal grudge with anybody at the company, so I just like to poke them a bit where it hurts any respected company the most: their bank account. I have a top-notch policy on cars, so if some of those were stolen, they would need to cough up. I'll hook a few cars to the alarm system to make it look legit. Please be gentle. Hey, I just got this awesome idea for humiliating Gordon. You know that ridiculous undersized racetrack he used in his backyard to pretend to being a race driver? Wouldn't it be funny if he came home to a new track record on that display? You decent driver by any chance? By the way, those paintings he helped me with earlier, they didn't make it through the thunderstorm. Burned up. Every single one. What are the odds? My only comfort is that at least Gordon doesn't have them either. So wait, I actually did this. I actually already set a new record on the racetrack. I suppose I'll just do that again. Okay, primary target finish in 30, secondary targets 25 and 20. Finishing in 20 would be a trick. If memory serves, when I did it, didn't I, like, just barely squeak under 30? How would somebody do that in, like, 20? Maybe if, like, the handling on the car was way better? Obviously, I've got to cheat somehow. What's that bright purple thing? Or pink, rather? I see there's an abundance of cars to choose from. Oh, it's this thing. I was hoping that'd be elastic. I could maybe just get some tires out of the way. I think the main thing is I have to pass through every gate. I don't know if I have to pass them in the right direction. Possibly worth investigating. This thing really doesn't handle very well. This one might not have top speed, but it turns a lot better, I think. Not that much better. Alright. I might just need to actually get good. Maybe that, like, really low riding one? Or like that one on the back of the truck, maybe? Oh, this thing does not like turning. I like how I keep hitting the same tires every single time. That feels like the kind of car that you use to, like, make a total ass of yourself, pardon my French. I noticed that the circus tent is gone. Believe it or not, trees are actually insanely expensive to replace. Let's see if this one's any good. I don't think I can get away with skipping that, but let's see if I can. Like, can I just skip gates? Is that an option? Because I'd have to go so fast. I don't think that one went through. It's like one of these is 20 seconds. That's so ridiculously fast. Is there some way that I can, like, cheese it? Like, if I just, for example... Yeah, I wonder if this is maybe a hint. What are the odds of that? Just perfectly safe. Alright, so idea. What if I relocate the gate? I get the feeling that as long as I don't, like, break the wire, it's fine. Using a second piece of construction equipment to get on top of the first. Alright, so, like... did just get these cables after all. This doesn't feel particularly secure, but... Oops. May as well give it a shot. We can always use planks if need be. Not sure how I got in there, but not complaining. Alright, so... I think the gate might be broken now. Yeah. If I were to guess, it's probably whether or not the lights are intact, or the lights are illuminated. I've definitely gotta, like, move these gates, though. There's no way I'm doing 20 seconds otherwise. Feels like it's probably more worth my time to bring those ones over here than it is to move this one anywhere. Or maybe the lights just turned off because I wasn't in a vehicle. What actually is the criteria for... Hold up. So that still lights up. Do I just have to, like, pass near it, or...? World's strongest fox girl, let's go. Yeah, like, as long as I don't break the cable. So, like, if I drive by that and then cut that, does that work? Not like that, it doesn't. Maybe I need to be underneath it as well. I'll start by not crashing into it. I am hearing that, like, ba-boop, ba-boop noise when I'm crossing through things, so I suspect... Oh, that did count. Okay. Hold up. Alright. I guess as long as I don't break the cable, I'm probably fine. In light of that... I put that right there, perhaps. I bring this over here. A few casual, precise shotgun blasts, as one does. Okay, so hypothetically I can just go like that and it should count. Let's see if it does. The grass got in my way. That was quick save, not quick load. Well, that's unfortunate is what that is. Right, luckily I didn't break anything. Release me. Backwards is not very fast, as it turns out. There we are. New record, 14 seconds. Totes legit. Let's go. The claims from Gordon keep coming in. I'm not new to this game, and I suspect he's trying to pull a trick on us. I think the best solution would be if he took his problems elsewhere. If I could just get rid of his insurance papers, poof, like that he'd be gone. He keeps the papers in one of his safes, top-of-the-line Quiles safes, very sturdy and virtually unbreakable. Trust me, he bought them on our recommendation. But they have one weakness, not waterproof. Go to Gordon's place and dump his safes in the water. That should smudge up the papers. Just one thing you should be aware of, these safes are equipped with moisture sensor alarms that will trigger when wet. That said, first... let's commit some more insurance fraud. Help Gordon steal at least 3 of his own cars. Okay, there are 6 cars, it's broad daylight. And I presume that, for example, this one doesn't count. Alright. So I'm probably gonna want cars to get to the cars. I wonder if any of them are movable without setting off an alarm. Usually they aren't, but maybe there's like one. Like this, for example, if I could move this... yeah, this one's movable without breaking things. I just gotta move them concurrently. Not having to deal with that one will be nice, cause... most of the other cars on the other side of the map. There's like one over there. But not having to get this one would be nice. Can the car drag its own alarm? Excellent question, that might be faster. It's missing a wheel, but... that need not inherently hold it back. That went as wrong as it could have, honestly. Oh, that was funny. Still though, did go better than I thought it would. It'd probably be faster to, like, tow the car than to drive the car. Oh yeah, if I could get it onto, like, the bed of this truck, that'd also work, I think. Close enough. Honestly, I probably don't even need multiple cables. Didn't even kill me. Alright, yeah, those cables are very strong. Yeah, I've exposed myself to so many explosions over time that I've built up an immunity. Perfect. If only I could just, like, do this like a normal person, instead of, like, making this way harder than it has to be. Let's set this hook up again. Set this hook up again. I'm just gonna use the bucket thing. I don't know what it's called. I imagine this thing's probably strong enough to lift them. Excavator? That sounds about right. Let's go with excavator. Excellent. And that again. I was gonna say they look kind of like an air freshener. If I plank them together like that, will they not bounce around as much? Truthfully, working better than I thought it would. Truthfully, working way better than I thought it would. If I put it in while it's still connected, will that still count, or... Okay, yes. I'll just leave that there unless I need the excavator for anything. Okay, this one's straight through here. That one's a lot more straightforward, I just drive it straight forward. Yep, super easy. Alright. Hey, the pool's filled this time. Nice. There's one in here, suspended. Second prize in car polish competition. This one I'm gonna go straight through this wall. This out of the way. Right, also works fairly straightforwardly. Getting back is a different story, but we'll worry about that when it comes to it. There was one over here, looked like it was on a platform, maybe? How'd you even get this one inside? They probably, like, rebuilt the whole thing around it, I guess. I wonder, could I do something like, say, this? Like, yank the backside around? This one wants to go out through this back wall. Popcorn machine maintenance manual. Okay, go to the corner instead, because it has trouble making that tight turn. This is fine. Okay, execution aside, that actually works fairly well. So I'll just blast that open. So that one, and that one are all accounted for. That one's accounted for. Not just these last two. I think this is the one that I thought was on a movable thing. Looks like it is. I think it was labeled helipad, so like maybe I can... I don't think there are any helicopters, but I can definitely cable this one, I think. Wrong way, wrong way. Oh. Doesn't quite reach. So I can fix that. I can do that to yoink it over. Like that, like that. Like that, like that. And then sever this one. Next hook. Okay, maybe I don't lift the dangly bits, maybe I just lift the corners. Well, that's kind of cool. The camera's kind of smudgy if you look at the sun. In real life, that thing would have just taken my head clean off. Let's start hooking things up. Scooch it just a little bit closer like that. Don't need that one anymore. Alright, alright. It's all coming together. Textbook. Honestly, I was pretty sure it was gonna break. I just wanted to see how long it'd take. Let's take these off, they're just kind of in the way. If there's not an easier way to like scooch this over. Huh. Surprised I couldn't steal those. Not that I would ever steal anything, of course. We can get it over that lip preemptively, that'd be great. Okay, okay. Okay, this one's way cleaner. It'd actually be better to take it round the other direction. That alarm box is the bit that is important to not break. Well, that and the cable. The red one specifically. Yeah, this is so fine. So very fine. How did that even happen? Like, it like snapped a metal pole. This is fine. You're good. You're good. The question now becomes, how am I going to get the car into the truck? For an exceedingly generous definition of car. I might actually be able to just, like, pick it up and drag it in. Yeah, it's actually so light now, I could just, like, cut cut the cables and, like, grab it. Close enough, I suppose. So now it's just this one down here. Hypothetically. Okay, and that one's just connected to the wall, so I don't think there's any shenanigans that can be done here. I do know that you can ramp up and land in there. I don't know if that accomplishes anything. So what I probably want to do, hypothetically, is start down here, race up there, like, run back down, get those. I probably want, like, a couple of extra cars to get back there. Then drag those in. Am I missing one? Let's see. That's there, that's there. That's accounted for. I need to get up there somehow, true. Oh, it's converted to a racing game cockpit. I was wondering what that was doing in there. How to get up there? I did save after getting these two into position here. I do have this. What are the odds that I can, like, move that, actually? Release me. I probably can't move it, but it's worth a double check, I think. Actually, I can just move the game server thing. Alright. I just assumed that it was, like, stuck to the wall. These cables are fun. Let me just do this and get away with it. Technically, yes. Just like Master Chief in my video games, I just gotta basically upright the car that I crashed. Not that I would ever crash a car. Okay, the car no longer drives. That's okay, though. Just gotta give it a little bit of a tow. Okay, so when the time comes, I just punch the engine on that, and it should yank it over the line. So now it's just the last three, one of which is the farthest away and is therefore the obvious start point. And these ones are close enough that I could maybe just run it. Simple way to find out. Okay, so I probably want to just take a route straight through. Shit. If I just do this, what happens? That works, okay. Just have the cable yank it in. Just gotta find a way up that doesn't total or capsize this car. Is it capsizing if a car does it, or is that just for boats? I see that there's got to be a particular order to things. One thing at a time. I could totally have handled that helipad one a bit better. That was smooth. I'm getting better at that jump, I think. I got 30 seconds to get the other two. Which is not a lot of time, but it's also not a lot of cars. Alright, there we go. That wasn't too bad at all. Ballistic. You reached a new rank. New tool has been delivered. Oh, rocket launcher. I can think of some use cases for this. My rocket jump. I think technically yes. Okay, so now I gotta dump these safes in water. But before I do that, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Please use this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom, anything that would take you about 5 minutes. I will see you shortly. I return, brandishing a rocket launcher. I noticed that this thing has like a drop-off indicator. I wonder if it actually has any drop-off. Yes, it does. Alright. Alright, dump the safes into the water. Now, it's raining outside, so like... will the alarm also go off if I just take them outside, or do they have to be like fully submerged before it counts? Easy way to find out. I have maybe a couple of seconds leeway. Alright. Can I find or craft anything that's like... covered from the rain? I don't think that I could cover the safe with a cable. I think the cable's probably too narrow to pull that one off, but like... if I could find something if I could find something like a truck with like a big bed in the back, that could totally work, hypothetically. I actually want to be careful to leave it mostly intact. So I gotta be careful about that. So that's one, then there's another one over here. Also, I should probably tie these down inside, so they don't, like, come flying out. Fairly fragile truck, all things considered. But this is fine, it just means that there's, like... an easy way to drop things in, that's all. The ultimate collection of movie one-liners. I'm stupid. That was the safe that I already put over there. I was in entirely the wrong building. Okay. There's also one over there. That's not good. It's just barely too tall for these. Well, I simply have to carefully reverse it, that's all. Oh. I do not know how to drive the truck if I'm being entirely honest. I feel like I'm improving it decently. This reminds me of when I applied for a bus driving job, and the job listing said no experience necessary, like, we encourage literally everybody to apply. And then when I actually, like, got a phone interview and I was, like, super excited, they were like, okay, so, like, how much experience do you have? And I was like, none. And they were like, oh, we're looking for somebody with, like, an abundance of experience. And in retrospect, I'm pretty sure that a human did not write the job listing. Oh well. You do your best. You gonna cut me in half? That'd be rude. What if I just did this instead? Got like a couple of seconds of leeway, so... yeah, easy. Alright, now there's one all the way down there. I really gotta be careful to try and, like, keep this truck intact, because I don't think I'm getting another one. It's always the trees. Oh. That's fine, I didn't need that corner. It was holding me back. You would think that a truck this size would be able to handle a little bit of wet grass. Yep, back at the racetrack. I already got a sub-20 time on it, totally legitimately. Shifty eyes. This time I'm stealing these safes. And the gimmick is that I cannot get them wet. Since that one over there seems like a pain, but it also is already on the water, I think what I might do is just, like, leave it for last and just, like, smash the truck through the foundations. This truck is also just a tiny little bit too big for most of these doors. So I gotta, like, actually try and maneuver the truck a little bit, legitimately. Kind of, sort of. Not particularly good at this. But that's okay. Got to level 6 in repo and collected a total of $202,000. Nice. That's a very big number. So I got 3 of them in the truck. There's one over there, and one up there. Getting the truck up there might prove to be difficult. Technically, I don't have to do them all in the truck. It's just the more in one place I get them, the easier. But, like, hypothetically, I could just, like, have a handful of cars that just, like, all drive them off. What are we dealing with over here? Right, this is already blasted open. I could totally back the truck around to that. Do I go all the way around the level? Or do I try to do something cheeky? The lazy part of me, which is like 99% of me, wants to try something cheeky instead of, like, driving that truck all the way around. So, I just get this all nice and situated there. Just tie that down a little bit. Cables might be a little bit too loose. It does work. I do have a glass cutter. Like, you see this nice, neat hole in the wall? Let's just try and turn this round. I forgot to resecure the safe. And so at this angle, I basically just hit the gas and it goes into the water. And that's right near the escape boat as well, so it works out. Then there's just the thing over here to do. It's like an egg chair. Interesting. I feel like I could not take myself seriously if I was sitting in a chair like that. Oh, big safe. This one's really slow. I definitely am going to need a vehicle for this one. Alternately, hold on. If I could drag it, over this pool, hypothetically. I could just drop it in there, surely. Like that, but with less fox and more safe. Can I get this over here in, like, anything approaching a reasonable time frame, though? That's the question. If I were to blast out the floor underneath of this instead, that would bring it down here. Where I might have an easier time just pushing it out the window, rather than dragging it across the wet ground. Worth a shot, I suppose. Oh, there's like a secret hole, extra floor here. Actually... that might even work better? Question mark? Probably not. I like how the rain sets it off, but not like rockets. Come along. I can move it just slowly. And maybe not over bumps. Come on. Follow my little telekinetic tether thing. Did I just pull out a rocket launcher? Yeah. Yep, standard demolition tool. I'm a totally legit, like, deconstruction specialist. That's all. Any claims to the contrary are unsubstantiated and will not hold up in a court of law. Ignore the roughly 8 hours worth of, like, contiguous video evidence that currently exists. And also that time that I, like, literally signed my name at the scene of a crime. This reminds you of the fox stealing the sled full of fish. You're not the first person to say that, funnily enough. It's like, what can I say? We are ambitious. Yeah, the first time I came through here, and I, like, stole a bunch of cars, I came over here to the parking lot, and with my spray can, I wrote, like, my name is Ariel Fox, and I stole all of your stuff, and this is an admission that you can use in a court of law. So hypothetically, not quite how I envisioned that going, honestly. But might actually technically work better. Not sure. Oh, there's like a canopy here. So I'll probably kick things off by rolling that in like that. So I start there. I might run down and get into the truck full of stuff over there. Or, like, park a car here to, like, get down there faster. I wonder if taking out the supports of this thing will dump the safe into the water, or if I have to, like, properly set that up too. Then again, even if I crash it in over there, like, getting back over to the right-hand side would take a while. So that's less than efficient. So let's see what we're dealing with over here. Okay, it's another relatively small one. Not nailed down. Compared to the last one, this one's positively featherweight. It is heavy enough that I could, like, punch through the ground with it. So, idea. Never mind, I guess. I'll bring the truck around and put it in there. That way I can kind of, like, have everything all in one spot and life will be easier. Hypothetically. I honestly can't envision doing this without the truck. I think Foxluck just activated 2 times in a row. Now, if only I actually knew how to drive a truck. I also think that the last time I came over here, I, like, lost traction and couldn't control the truck anymore. You like it when vehicles automatically right themselves? The funny thing is, this game doesn't actually have that. I don't know why the truck righted itself. Like, I'm not complaining, I just don't know why it happened. I also appear to have accidentally torn open the side of this truck. That's fine. We can just, patch it up. I'll just add construction company to my resume as well. Let's see if I can't get this through here without it setting off. Surprised I got away with that, honestly. Okay, so... now I just need to get this up there, intact. And the fastest way to do that is to do this. Assuming that it works. I feel like it might if I come at it from, like, a shallow enough angle. And, like, with enough speed. I also gotta be careful not to let the rain touch the safes. I don't think I'm making it up that ramp. Oh dear, no, I do not want to hit quick save there. Oh, almost misclicked quite badly. Okay, let's go around the long way instead. We're fine. We're good. I'm a professional. So, hypothetically, I push that one off, run over here, drive two vehicles in, and it's like super easy and quick. Assuming that I set everything up adequately. I feel like I did. Alright. And I basically just head straight that direction. There we go. Not too bad at all. Yep, specifically I had to submerge them in water. I was hired by the insurance company to demolish his insurance papers because he was making too many legitimate insurance claims. Increase in vandalism. And if I turn this off and on again. They are state-of-the-art keyless safes, Wu said in an interview. It's like an ad for the safes that I just vandalized. That's a different sort of ad. Yeeting opportunities. What are you, an AI tech pro? Hey, are you available for a job? I've been talking to the folks at Evertides about replacing the food court with a new parking garage. I really want that job, and if the food court, disappeared, it might speed up their decision-making process. So I was thinking, tonight while everybody's focused on that locale parade fireworks, would be a great opportunity to do something about that building. The locale home guard have been using the mall parking lot as a staging area before and after the parade. You might find something useful there. Overt chaos, I am on board. Military parade. I guess if you didn't have the rocket launcher already, that'd be like a chance to try it out. Minigun? Yeah, I've been 100%ing every level, so I've just been unlocking everything. Let's see, okay, scavenge the area, prepare for demolition without causing any damage to the food court, rest in the escape vehicle when ready, demolish at least half of it during the fireworks, and then leave the scene. Without causing any damage to the food court, it says. Take down the food court. Take down the food court. Take down the food court. I like how this one is called Lick the Plate. It's like truly a monster. Hold up. These are tanks. That is a reticule. Okay. What would I even need beside a tank, I suppose? Oh, that's really strong. I like that. Hypothetically, I guess some of like the construction equipment that like pushes things I could hypothetically use. Like shove debris out of the way. I don't know what it's called, but like this one. Like, I feel like a tank is probably adequate. The minigun is how you imagine a rural town in the US sound on a chill Tuesday afternoon. See, I misread that, and I thought you were saying, like, a US school, and I was gonna be like, yeah. Yeah, rural town makes more sense. I mean, I haven't really prepped much, but like... What can I accomplish with a tank? Oh, the tank only had 3 shells. This thing just doesn't slow down when it hits things. Never mind. Military equipment be like. I do have more than one. I guess taking into account the fact that they each only have 3 shots, I should set up the tanks. Granted, I do have this minigun. Wonder what I can accomplish with that. Realistically, I should probably use this thing for like cleaning up after using the tanks. But I want to get a sense of like what it's capable of. I'm not even sure what killed me. Let's see. I have access to 3 tanks. Is there anything else elsewhere? I mean, construction equipment, obviously. On your way to a convention, you saw military people on a train. One of them had his rifle on a seat next to him. I wonder if they try to argue that they technically count as service animals. Like, yeah, this is my service rifle. It's for, like, emotional support. I do also have my rocket launcher. Yeah, I'm not really sure what exactly I'm going to encounter in terms of obstacles, so... I guess I'll just start like that and see what happens. Oh, they're kissing. I actually managed to... Whoops. Okay, it'd be cool if I had, like, C4, so I could, like, wire the whole place up, and then, like, as soon as it started, I just, like, hit the detonator. It's like an explosive thing there, somehow. Not sure what. Through that whole wall. Over here. Another explosive thing. I may have shot myself just a little. Perhaps more than once. I could have sworn I saw that shot, like, went farther. I must remember that I do also have the rocket launcher and minigun. And bombs and everything. Doesn't all have to be tank. I just kind of want to play with the tank, because tank. Whenever I was a child playing Halo, I liked using the Scorpion. There's just something really fun about it. I think I just need to more vigorously be using explosives. Instead, if I could get the whole building to crumble, that'd be nice. Like that, yeah. What is even left? Like, where do I even shoot to get progress now? So it seems like taking out all the foundations is a solid strat, I just don't know how to follow up on it. What's holding it up? This thing? We're back down to 2.7 again. Oh wait, I think all 3 pips are filled in, so I think I can just leave now. I guess it didn't have to be 100%. Yeah, okay. Crackerjack. You reached a new rank. New tool has been delivered. Leaf blower. Doesn't seem to have an ammo limit. Just pushes things. Okay. More power clears bigger debris. intended purpose is to clear out debris after an explosion to make a drivable pathway for a vehicle. Forward move. Full stop. That little brat hit me again. You wouldn't believe the mess I came home to. It's going to take weeks to clean up, and the insurance company won't even pick up the phone. I've had it with Lee. It's time to show him not to mess with the big boys. The chemical plant is Lee's life, and I'm going to put it out of operation. The power plant is the heart of the whole facility, and I want it gone. It's a sturdy beast, but I'll provide you with proper firepower to take out the main generator for good. Also, take out all auxiliary power, and the plant will be shut out for a long, long time. Let's see what we're dealing with here. Breaking a target will trigger the alarm. There are 8 targets. Fence isn't even locked. Bold of them. Is a gun adequate for this? Yes, it is. Okay. I might be able to just sharpshoot this one, depending on what I need to hit. Let's see, there's a thing over here as well. This is a primary target. Okay, that also works. So, like, bang bang, that's 2 targets like that. 3 over there, 3 over here. Bang, that's dead. This one's inside. If I do that, does that destroy it? Yes, it does. Okay. Thing over there, I can just shoot the gun. Thing over here. This truck might be in the way. It's this thing. The bomb put here hit it. No, it wouldn't, but it would expose it. So now I can get that from, like, over there, for example. Because it is just a still 1 bullet, I think, to get rid of it. Yeah. So, like, what if I just, cleared out this corner, actually? Got this vehicle out of the way. So, bang bang. Get over there. Load that up along the way. I saw a boat in the water that I can probably use to, like, get across there quickly. Though I do have to go through that tower, except I don't, because I can just take a shot at that too, so boat is the way. I I like how after going all the way around, I just jump back into the water. That boat looks faster. I prefer a faster boat. It might not actually be faster, but it certainly, feels easier to handle. Okay, so I hit that. I have to put a big bomb there and destroy that as well. Can I just shoot that too, I wonder? This looks like it actually needs a proper big bomb. So I might need to start the heist here. Possibly. Is the big bomb something I was meant to pick up? Yes, it was. I can physically move this. That's not too bad. Probably gonna want this larger boat after all. I wonder if the bomb goes off as soon as I set it, or if it's like, oh, you set it and then you shoot it to set it off. Coming up. Coming up. Trying to get a view of this. It's not quite working. Might be better if I like use the crane to load it into the boat. Might also help if I brought the boat a little bit closer to shore. I could like roll it up with some planks maybe. I am, after all, the giant bomb expert. That's why they hired me. There we go. Old bomb gentle like hamburger. So like... Bomb is in place. So I press E to detonate it. Must it be manually detonated, or can I use the gun? Looks like it's gotta be manually detonated, which means that the run's gotta start here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I just face tanked that. Okay, so I get about 10, 11 seconds after it is armed. So arm that. I hit that thing from here. Okay, I can. It just takes several shots. That just means I shoot preemptively and I'm fine. So it only takes one at, like, the moment of, actual action. Okay, so only 3 properly placed shots, so I can do the first two preemptively. Oh. Okay, only 2 shots if they're placed properly. Ow, my bones. What have I missed? I've missed 4 things. There was that one I didn't do. There's someone over there. Oh, whoops. Normally I'd be calling stream by here, but, like, I'm fairly confident that I can, I'm fairly confident that I can get this done in time. So, shoot that, I shoot that. I shoot that on the way out. Bomb goes here. Transformer I shoot there. Then it's those last 3 things, which Should be pretty fast if I preemptively crack that one open. That might be too close. It was not. Okay, even easier. Alright, this should be pretty quick. The rocket launcher definitely makes this easier than it might otherwise be. Rocket launcher did not hit the intended target. Luckily, I do have until Big Bomb goes off to line up that shot, so it's all good. Only one thing exploded. It's got to hit both things. Okay, I gotta aim more for the middle. That's fine. That's better. Put a little sneaky in here. Come around here. Is that not the thing? There we go. Yeah, that could have been way worse. Skeet Master. Professional. New rank unlocked. Yeah, we ran a little bit over tonight. That's okay, we had fun. Or at least I did. New tool has been delivered. Rocket booster. That's incredible, I love it. But yeah, so thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it each and every time. Next scheduled stream is going to be tomorrow, Monday. I have not yet decided what it's going to be. The next time that I'm playing Teardown in particular is going to be on Sunday. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful night. I hope to see you again. Good night.